Welcome once again to Happy Brain, Happy Life with Dr. Myrelis Aponte or Dr. Mimi for many of you. Super excited to be here. Another episode, another opportunity to continue to grow your knowledge on brain health. Now, this week, we're going to be talking about the neurobiology of the brain. And that sounds all too scientific, but I promise to try to explain all of this in simple words. If you have seen our first couple of videos and episodes, you have already seen a little bit of our anatomy and how the brain is structured. And we have also talked about some of those mechanisms that are there for us to respond immediately and how so many things have been saved within our brain. That's what so many people call in neuro programming. We call it, all that pre-program that we have in our subconscious because of the way our brain is structured. So, our subcortex or the structures under our cortex are those of related to more innate, more automatic responses, and it's all gonna depend about our environment, right? However, it is a very complex system. So today my goal is to guide you to understanding a little bit what neural networks are, how they are actually set up, and how we can rewire our brains. Yes, because I have told you that we don't have to be the brain that we have right now. This is a phrase from Dr. Daniel Amen, whom I love to follow. And Dr. Amen says, you are not the brain you have. And he has based all his research in neuroimaging and how we are going to have one whole episode about research, so I'll go deeper into that and how neuroimaging has changed completely the way we view our brain and how we now understand how it works. So let me tell you a little bit about neural networks, right? We have said and we have mentioned, and I love to use my little brain model here. So I'm going to bring it back with me because I love being visual. I am a very visual learner. And so you'll see that with me. I'll use my words, I'll use my hands. My Latina, it's going to come out all the time. And so I just love using visuals. But we have talked about having two hemispheres, right? A left hemisphere, right hemisphere being contralateral. So that means your right hemisphere kind of domains and has control of your left side of your body, and the left hemisphere has control of the right side of your body. And so we have that already tells us that there's got to be information crossing over, right? Going from one side of the brain to the other and vice versa. Now, we have also talked about a very important structure within the brain, which is the corpus callosum. And I actually always remembered the name when I was studying because it's kind of formed as a C, a big C. You see it right here in white. And so the corpus callosum really, it's a dense neural network of fibers of neurons that go across from one side to the other to be able to pass information over. Now, it's interesting because that information, we can have the right chemistry and not the correct energy, and the information won't pass, right? We can have the correct energy and not the correct chemistry, and the information won't go through adequately. This is why when I talked about homeostasis in episode 1, I talked about creating equilibrium, creating that balance, because our brain really needs the opportunity to have the appropriate energy and the appropriate chemistry to be able to pass on information. Now, I wish I had a better model for, a neuron right now to show you. But it is interesting how in the past, I remember my school days. I don't know how many of you remember your school days, but I do. I remember my school days when we talked about neurons, we talked about the point where one neuron would connect with the other, and we would call that a synapse, right? And we, at that point, we thought, okay, a synapse is a place, let's think these are the dendrites from one one neuron, and this is the next neuron kind of, reaching out. And we thought that uh, space where we called it synapse was both neurons touched one another, and that is how information passed from one neuron to the other, right? Touching. But now science, and neuroimaging has shown us that actually neurons don't touch, they interact neurochemically and neurophysically. That means that they exchange energy and chemistry to pass information from one neuron to the other. So now we call it the synaptic space, because it's actually a space where they hold each other and exchange chemistry and energy to let the next neuron know what it needs to do. And so that is why I talk so much about homeostasis, because as neurons pass on information to one another, and imagine this at the billions of neurons trying to work this at the same time, it is just an impactful system that is continuously working for you at all levels. And so, if we are able to visualize that as a network, now I know that the word networks, you immediately think of a computer, right? You immediately think of programming and how information goes from one place to the other. And typically, those of you who have studied, computer programming and something in that scenario, typically it's a set of codes of letters, symbols, and numbers, right? That's how you code, right? Nowadays it's all about letters, numbers, and symbols. However, within the brain, it also is, in a way, because it is about the right set of signals being set, the correct set of chemicals interacting at the right moment and the right time, and the exact amount of energy needed to produce it. Now, if we don't have it, if we haven't created those patterns, then there is no way that that neural network is going to work. So I am going to go a little bit back where our development happened, because if you think about it, I love showing it through development, because I am certain we can all look at a baby, right? And look at a baby that cannot hold their head up yet, that cannot hold their arms up yet, that when they're sleepy, you can imagine, right? They're super, their body is completely let go. You could also put them in all sorts of position. I don't know if you've seen all those really cute baby photos, when you can put them in pretty much any position, because those muscles and even those extremities and the body don't even know yet what they are supposed to do. And it is not until exposure and maturing, right, those neurons begin to mature and specialize in particular motor areas, that the baby begins to grasp or begins to get their neck stronger. So you see that by month 3 they already lift their head, and what is one of the signs that neurologically, for us, yes, that baby is responding properly. And then by month 5 or 6, they have already kind of turned over, and now they're turning over and they're starting to um kind of scratch on the floor. They're playing the little lizard. We call it the lizard game, because they're actually just stretching and through the ground, and that is so important. But nowadays, as parents, we don't want the babies to even touch the floor, right? We don't want them getting dirty. We don't want them, and that is so important for us to notice, because those are programming moments. Those are ways that our neural network is looking for ways to program information by experiencing the outside world and figuring it out. So the less that somebody does for us, the better, because at that point, our bodies and our brain are trying to figure it out on their own. That's why I love Montessori education, because they actually promote the independence of the brain. It's actually very brain based, even though Maria Montessori at that time wasn't thinking so much about the brain. She was thinking about, the social development and the cognitive development of the individual. However, our bodies begin to create those networks as we experience. So I'm going to show you something else, thinking about a neural network. As those neurons mature, they start looking for ways to function, right? They start looking for an opportunity of how to connect. Now, if we don't provide it the adequate experience, right? I'm not saying give it everything to do the task, but the adequate opportunity, then the connection doesn't get done. And so our neurons don't mature enough to create the proper patterns. And at times, if those patterns are not well set, you'll see a little kid, a baby trying to figure out how to crawl, and they still can't figure it out. I remember my daughter, Victoria, she's 11 now, but when she was in my womb at week 19, we were going through a lot of stress because my mom had a very serious heart infarct, and she had to have open heart surgery. And so it was a very, very stressful moment. I'm an only child, so you can imagine. And my baby just kind of felt, she folded like a little sandwich inside my belly and kind of stayed the rest of the pregnancy, kind of hitting up in my belly. So when she was born, I already knew that there were some neural information that was probably stressful, that was scary for her, that she would have a very different experience. We ended up being a C-section, which also did not give the proper neural information for her. But as she developed, we could see how some neural networks were not well programmed. Her crawling was really horrible. She crawled with only one leg and the two hands, and left one leg behind. And so I'm just giving you this example to tell you that your neurons have been working on creating this network throughout your life. So multiply by however many years you have. If you're still a kid and you're still seeing this, fantastic. But if you are over, like me, over 21, believe me, this neural network has been all those years trying to create the connections. And so I use this little mesh. It's a little mesh I found actually from my kids' toys, from my girls' toys. But it reminded me of how the brain is really intertwined. Your thoughts, your emotions, everything that you have experienced in life has created this network, right? So from the front to the back, think of this as the brain and how it's all intertwined throughout those neurons. And we are the ones creating those connections. We are the ones creating the possibility of the brain being able to execute something physically. And we can see it in athletes all the time. The more they practice something new, the more they attempt something challenging, the more that brain is able to work through it and make it happen. But look at yourself when you're trying something completely new. I remember I was an adult, even though I'm a Latina, I had never taken a salsa lesson, and I loved, but I just learned from looking at other people, and I decided to go into lessons. And all of a sudden my brain was having like a little, I don't know, electrical discharge every time I tried to follow this whole new pattern of how to dance salsa. And this is why we're able to rewire our brains. This is why it's so important, because we are the ones who set it up. The experiences that you have had in your past have set up your current neural network. It doesn't matter if your experience have been great, not so great, or even traumatic. What I can tell you is that we are able to rewire our brains. And the way we are able to do that, would you like to know? Well, let me tell you, is by giving your brain new experiences. Give your brain new experiences. And what this might mean for you is try something totally new. We are very fast and easy to say, oh, I wouldn't be able to do that. Oh, no, no, no. I remember that is not for me. I remember I have a beautiful farm, 5 acres in West Palm Beach, Florida. And we have horses, and so many people come visit us. So if you're ever in the area, look us up, Braveheart Farm. But one thing that I expose people is to horses for the first time. And you should see how many people come here and they say, oh, no, 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 no. I had a bad experience in my past and I'm not getting on a horse ever again. I just wouldn't be able to attempt it. But that is because their previous experience has created a network of fear. It's a network that's directly connected to your amygdala by saying, no, 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 don't even attempt that. Don't even try that. Don't even think that you can get close to that. And the same thing happens with our futures. No, I'm becoming a millionaire. No, don't you rich. Are you crazy? That's what your network is gonna say. Because those are the connections, those are the thoughts that were already created. Your network is gonna look at what you've been able to achieve up to now and say, but don't you see? You haven't even gone close to that. How can you even say you're gonna be a millionaire? Because our network has already been created. But what about if we rewire it? What about if we change the way this connection is just a little connection? We can connect, we can create new networks. And the way we're going to do it is by exposing our brains to new opportunities, by exposing our brains to something different that we have not attempted before. Now, there is a catch to this, right? Oh, if it were so easy to just reconnect and redo, everybody would be doing it. You are right. The difference is that to rewire your brain, you need to give your brain the same or more consistency than that previous thought or that previous experience. So if we're trying to change something like the fear of heights, what do you think you should give your body? New experiences in height. Now, we can have different opportunities to change this. So we can rewire softly and by exposing, in different opportunities and every time go higher if we were talking about fears of heights. Versus we can talk about flooding, which is a technique of exposing yourself to something super high at one moment and just telling your body, we are going to do this, and we attempt it and we achieve it. So there are certain amount of ways that we can rewire our brains. The question is, how much are you willing to transform your neural network? How much are you willing to look at what your current network looks like? And that is by asking yourself questions. How do we do that? Ask yourself questions. What were my previous experiences? How have I become, connected to this current thought? Why, what previous experiences have connected me to being or not able to do something? Many people say they can't do something physically because they're only thinking of their current physical ability. But as you train your body the same way, repetition, 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 and exposure are going to help your brain rewire in a brand new way. Now, this is why certainly neurocoaching is so useful, right? Because as we attempt all of these things and we say, well, maybe I take a short lesson here and a short lesson there, or I just turn to YouTube and learn something new, which is fantastic. I myself personally have learned so many things through smaller experiences, but it's a very different idea when you deep dive with someone who can ask you the right questions and expose you the right way. So I encourage you to connect with a neuro coach. You can certainly connect to us at doctoramirelis.com and search the different opportunities that you have to change the way you think, feel, and act, to double and triple your results in life, either it be in your physical body, either it be in your relationships, either it be in your business, either it be in any area of your career or life. So I encourage you to start thinking about how is your network being wired right now, and what steps are you going to take to start rewiring your brain to make sure that you become what? A happy brain, having a happy life. This is Dr. Mirelli with you today, and I look forward to our next episode next week. Have a great day.